Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are setting out on a really remarkable journey.
We are. It takes us from, the villages of Andalusia right across the Sahara Desert.
All the way to the Egyptian pyramids. We are going deep into what is, I think, one of the most enduring stories of our time. Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist.
It's an amazing text to unpack because it's so hard to classify. We're looking at excerpts from the book itself, but also his introduction, which is this really powerful sort of primer for the whole thing.
It really frames it.
It does. It frames the story not just as some adventure, but like a direct instruction manual for living your life.
And the cultural impact is just, it's staggering.
It's not just a book.
No, it's a cultural touchstone. It's been translated into 56 languages, sold something like 20 million copies, probably more by now.
And you see it everywhere. You have people like President Clinton, Julia Roberts, all these major figures talking about it.
When a story hits that hard, you know it's tapping into something really universal, something essential.
It absolutely is. It sort of transcends the normal boxes of like fiction or self-help. It's more like a modern fable or a myth. People talk about it in the same way they talk about these, ancient texts that offer this profound, simple wisdom.
So I guess our mission today is to really pull out those universal concepts.
And it all centers on this one core idea from Coelho.
This idea of a personal calling.
Or, as he calls it, the personal legend. We're going to use the journey of the main character, the shepherd boy Santiago, as a kind of roadmap to understand it all.
And maybe see how how you can apply these lessons to your own life.
And that mission, it really starts with the feeling that snarked the book in the first place. Coelho talks about this moment he got the publisher's letter.
Ooh, right.
And he said that reading The Alchemist was like getting up at dawn and seeing the sunrise while the rest of the world still slept.
Wow.
And that feeling right there, that moment of sudden, overwhelming clarity of seeing a truth that everyone else is missing, that's the promise of the book. It's what Santiago is looking for.
Okay, so let's build on that foundation. The cornerstone of this whole philosophy is the personal calling or the personal legend.
Right.
And Coelho doesn't just leave it as some vague, abstract idea. He gives it real weight. So what exactly is a personal legend?
He defines it in almost spiritual terms, which I think is important. He calls it God's blessing.
Okay.
Or the path that God chose for you here on earth. And the key, the way you know you're on it, is enthusiasm.
Enthusiasm.
Deep, genuine enthusiasm. If what you're doing fills you with that, you're on the path. It's the one purpose that only you can fulfill.
So that really flips the whole idea of what we're responsible for on its head, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, the book makes this almost startling claim.
Oh.
That the only real obligation a person has is to realize their personal legend.
Yes. It basically transforms personal fulfillment from like a luxury item into a sacred duty.
A duty.
Yeah. If you accept that, then your ultimate responsibility isn't to your family's expectations or society's rules or even making money. It's to this internal compass of enthusiasm.
But I have to ask, doesn't that sound, a little selfish? If my only obligation is my own unique purpose, what about my responsibilities to other people, to my community?
That's a great question, and I think it's a common first reaction. But the book addresses it by showing that the personal legend is rarely simple or purely selfish.
Okay.
Santiago has to sacrifice his entire livelihood to even start his journey. But the pursuit itself, because it's driven by that pure enthusiasm, it ends up benefiting others.
Oh.
Well, think of the alternative. If you abandon your personal legend, you become bitter. And that bitterness, that resentment, it poisons everything and everyone around you. So fulfilling your legend is kind of paradoxically the best thing you can do for others.
That makes sense. A fulfilled person is a source of light, not a drain of resentment.
Exactly.
So if this path is so important, why do so many people just stand still? Coelho points to 4 big universal barriers. Let's tackle the first one.
Okay, the first barrier is probably the most common because it's instilled in us so early. It's the fear of impossibility.
Right. Which is really just a nice way of saying societal conditioning.
Precisely. We're told constantly, from childhood, that our big dreams are unrealistic, they're silly, they're impossible.
And Coelho says that feedback builds up, right?
Yeah, he says it builds layers of prejudice, fear, and guilt. And these layers get so thick, they just bury the personal legend deep down in your soul until you can't even see it anymore. It's still there, but it's hidden.
Okay, so say you manage to dig through all that and you start moving. You almost immediately hit obstacle number 2, and this one feels, trickier. It's love.
the fear of hurting the people you love.
Yeah, the guilt of abandoning them or making them worry.
This is a huge trap, and the book's insight here just turns conventional wisdom on its head.
How so?
Coelho says that true love is an impetus. It's a driving force, not an anchor. If someone genuinely loves you, they want you to be happy, and they'll be prepared to accompany us on that journey one way or another.
So the test of real love is whether it pushes you to be your best self or tries to keep you safe and small.
Exactly. The kind of possessive love that demands you stay put, that's not true love in this philosophy. The real partner in your life knows that their happiness is tied to your fulfillment. We see this so clearly when Santiago meets Fatima.
Okay, so you get past conditioning, you navigate the complexities of love, and now you're really on the path. That's when you face the hard reality of defeat.
The third hurdle, the fear of failure and the suffering that comes with trying something big.
And he says that suffering is actually worse when it's for a dream, right?
Yeah, it's amplified.
Okay.
Because you're all in. When you stake everything on something you truly care about and it collapses, you suffer far more.
Because you can't use that classic excuse.
Yes, I didn't really want it anyway.
Exactly. This kind of failure hits you at your core.
So what's the secret to resilience then? How do you handle that kind of devastation?
It comes down to a combination of patience and faith. Patience to just endure, and faith that the universe is still working in your favor, even when it doesn't look like it. He had a great line about it.
To fall 7 times and to get up 8 times. It's that simple and that hard. The goal isn't to avoid falling, it's just to keep getting up.
And he makes this really interesting distinction about the kind of suffering to avoid.
Yes, he says that, a big, intense, painful event passes more quickly. The real danger is the apparently bearable suffering.
That slow burn.
That slow burn of resignation, of giving up. He says that kind of suffering eats away at our soul through bitterness. And that slow bitterness is worse than any big, sudden loss.
So if you survive defeat, you finally arrive at the last obstacle, the fourth one. And it's maybe the most dangerous of all because it's waiting right at the finish line. Realization.
The fear of actually getting what you want.
It's such a paradox.
It is. Once you've done the impossible, what's next? He quotes Oscar Wilde. Each man kills the thing he loves.
People feel guilty, don't they? They look at others who failed and feel like they don't deserve their own success.
And they forget all the battles they fought to get there. And this fear, he says, it puts on a saintly aura.
The idea that it's more virtuous to renounce joy or success.
Exactly. Ultimate self-sabotage, born from a feeling of unworthiness. But the book's answer is that if you succeed, you become an instrument of God. You're actually helping the soul of the world. Success, in this view, is the highest form of service.
Okay, that whole framework gives us the perfect lens to look at Santiago's journey. So let's meet him. He's a young shepherd, and we first find him sleeping in a ruined church in Andalusia.
Right, under a sycamore tree.
And the key thing is he's not a nobody. He's someone who already walked away from a perfectly good, pre-planned life.
That's so crucial. He was in a seminary until he was 16. His parents wanted him to be a priest, a source of pride, of security.
But he chose to be a shepherd.
A very deliberate choice. He said he wanted to know the world, and that felt more important than just learning about God and sin from books.
It's his first quiet step toward his personal legend. And his father, in this really amazing moment, actually supports him.
He does. He gives him the gold coins to buy his sheep, and he shares this little piece of wisdom. He says travelers just come, look at the castle, and leave. They don't change.
But shepherds.
Shepherds are the only locals who actually travel and become part of the landscape. So Santiago's choice wasn't just about moving, it was about real discovery.
And the actual call to adventure comes from a dream he keeps having.
This recurring dream. A child appears, plays with his sheep, and then transports him to the pyramids in Egypt.
And promises him a hidden treasure.
Right, but he always wakes up right before the kid can tell him where it is.
So the dream is basically his buried personal legend knocking on the door.
It is. It's persistent. And he acts on it. He goes to this gypsy woman in Tarifa to get it interpreted.
And that scene is full of fear, right? He's thinking about all the old stories of gypsies kidnapping children.
But he takes the risk, and her interpretation is almost funny in its simplicity.
She said, "You must go to the pyramids. There you will find a treasure."
It sounds so anticlimactic, but that confirmation is the first real omen. It moves the dream from just a fantasy into a possible reality.
And her price is interesting, too.
Yeah, 1/10 the treasure, but only if he finds it. She charges nothing for the interpretation itself. It sets up this idea that committing to the journey requires a real promise, a sacrifice.
Soon after that, his real mentor shows up. Melchizedek, the king of Salem, just sitting there in the town square.
And this character is just pure mystery and power from the start. He knows everything about Santiago.
His parents' names, the seminary, even the name of the girl Santiago has a crush on.
He immediately establishes himself as, an agent of the universe.
Yeah.
And the moment he calls Santiago's book irritating, because it's about people's inability to choose their own personal legends.
He stops being just some old man and becomes a cosmic guide.
And he immediately identifies the enemies. He calls it the world's greatest lie.
Let's break that down. What is that lie?
The lie is the belief that at a certain point in our lives, we lose control of what's happening to us, and our lives become controlled by fate.
So it's the excuse we use for not trying.
It's the ultimate excuse for staying stuck. Melchizedek is saying, no, you always have the choice to pursue your legend.
And to fight that feeling of helplessness, he introduces another idea, the mysterious force.
Yeah, this is the force we usually think of as bad luck or resistance. But he says it appears to be negative that actually shows you how to realize your personal legend.
It's there to make you stronger.
Exactly. It prepares your spirit and your will, which leads right into that famous idea of the cosmic conspiracy.
When you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it.
And this whole conspiracy, he says, is fueled by the soul of the world.
Which is what?
The unifying energy of everything. And it's nourished by people's happiness, which comes from them pursuing their personal legends. But interestingly, he also says it's nourished by unhappiness, envy, and jealousy.
So even our negative emotions are part of the cosmic flow.
Yeah, they're just another form of energy, though a less constructive one.
So to make sure Santiago actually commits, Melchizedek demands payment. 6 sheep.
A huge sacrifice, a tenth of his flock. But the king needs something real, something valuable up front. It teaches the lesson that everything in life has its price.
You have to sacrifice the present to get to the future.
You do. And in return, he gives Santiago a tool, Urim and Thummim.
A black stone for no and a white stone for yes, for reading the omens.
But he gives it with a really important warning.
Only use them when you're truly stuck.
Right. He says, learn to make your own decisions. The real lesson isn't to rely on magic stones. It's to learn to trust your own gut, the language of the world.
And before he leaves, Melchizedek tells him that one final perfect story. The one about the wise man, the spoon, and the 2 drops of oil.
It's such a brilliant little parable. A boy has to carry a spoon with 2 drops of oil through the magnificent palace without spilling it.
The first time, he focuses so hard on the oil that he doesn't see any of the palace's beauty.
The second time, he sees all the marvels, but he spills the oil.
And the moral ties everything together.
The secret of happiness is to see all the marvels of the world and never to forget the drops of oil on the spoon.
Enjoy the journey, but don't forget your purpose.
Exactly. It sets up the whole rest of the book.
Okay, so Santiago sells all his sheep. He crosses over to Tangier in Africa. He has the king's wisdom. He has his gold. He's ready to go. And then immediate total disaster.
Betrayal in Tangier. It's a brutal dose of reality. He's still so naive, He shows all his money to this new friend, this young Arab guide.
Gets distracted by a beautiful sword in a shop window.
A perfect symbol of the worldly things the king warned him about, and poof, the guide and all the money are gone.
He's left with nothing. In a foreign country, doesn't speak the language. This is where the philosophy has to become practical, right? What's his reaction?
At first, it's just shame and self-pity. He's angry at God, feels like his faith has been betrayed. He's right on the edge of giving in to that third obstacle, defeat.
He could just become bitter and give up.
Absolutely. But this is his first real test of will. He has to challenge the world's greatest lie.
The idea that fate controls him.
Right. He realizes he has a choice. He can think of himself as the poor victim of a thief or as an adventurer in quest of his treasure.
And he chooses adventurer.
He chooses adventurer. And that single internal choice to reframe his reality is his first real act of alchemy. He's changing his own story.
And in his desperation, he tries to use Urim and Thummim, the stones the king gave him. What happens?
Well, he asks if the king's blessing is still with him, and the stones say yes. But then he asks if he's going to find his treasure.
And they fall through a hole in his pouch.
Right onto the ground. The omen couldn't be clearer. The universe is screaming at him, stop asking questions and start doing something.
There's some things you just shouldn't ask because it's an excuse not to act.
Exactly. So he's forced into action. And that leads him to the shop of the crystal merchant.
A shop that's high up on a forgotten hill, which feels very symbolic.
Total stagnation. And Santiago gets a job just by seeing a problem. The crystals are dirty and offering a solution. And this is where he discovers the language without words.
He starts communicating with people, even though he doesn't speak Arabic. How does that work?
He realizes that his purpose is communicating for him, the language of enthusiasm, of action. His intention is so pure and focused that it transcends words.
And his ideas, the display case, serving tea in the crystal glasses, they make the shop a huge success. But the merchant fights him on it.
And this reveals the merchant's own tragedy. He's the perfect example of the fourth obstacle, the fear of realization.
He has this lifelong dream to make the pilgrimage to Mecca, the Hajj.
He's a devout Muslim. He has the money, but he won't go. And he admits why. He's afraid that if he actually achieves his dream, he'll have no reason to go on living.
He prefers the dream of Mecca to the actual place.
The dream is what keeps him going. The reality might just leave him feeling empty. The dream has become his comfort zone, his whole identity.
And he says something so powerful to Santiago.
Every blessing ignored becomes a curse.
Wow.
Santiago's arrival, all his success, it's a blessing that forces the merchant to face all the possibilities he's ignoring. And it makes him feel worse, not better, because it's a constant reminder of his own choice to stay stuck.
This part of the story also introduces a really important concept, maktub.
Right, the Arabic phrase for "it is written," destiny. But it's important to see how the merchant and Santiago understand it differently.
For the merchant, it's an excuse.
It's fatalistic. It is written, so I don't have to do anything. Santiago learns that maktub isn't an excuse for inaction. It's the context for action. You have to actively paddle your boat down the river of fate.
So after almost a year, Santiago has done incredibly well for himself.
Right.
He has enough money to go home and buy a flock twice the size of his old one.
He's achieved worldly success. He has the perfect opportunity to go back to his old, comfortable life.
Which is the biggest trap of all.
It is. And ironically, it's the crystal merchant, the man who represents stagnation, who gives him the final push. He tells him, maktub, you're not going to buy your sheep.
He sees that Santiago's destiny is bigger than that now.
He does, and Santiago realizes the sheep were just a step, not the goal, so he decides to continue on to the pyramids and joins a caravan heading into the desert.
And this is where he meets the Englishman.
Right, which sets up this amazing contrast. The Englishman is also on a quest for his personal legend, but he's going about it in a completely different way.
A purely academic way.
Exactly. He's looking for a 200-year-old alchemist at the Al Fayoum Oasis to learn the masterwork.
So we get introduced to the technical side of alchemy.
The Englishman's version of it, anyway. It's all about purifying metals to achieve two things. The elixir of life, which grants immortality, and the philosopher's stone, which turns lead into gold.
And he thinks the secret is in these incredibly dense, complicated books.
All about mercury and salt and dragons and, these obscure texts. Meanwhile, Santiago is out there learning by observing the desert, practicing that language without words.
Which leads him to a deeper understanding of the soul of the world.
He starts to see that the caravan, the desert, the wind, they're all speaking the same language. It's all connected. He realizes his hunches aren't just guesses.
What are they?
They're an immersion of the soul into the universal current of life, where everything's history is connected to everything else's.
And the Englishman, with all his books, just finds Santiago's approach to be, too simple.
He's frustrated by it. He has all these complicated notes, and Santiago basically boils all of alchemy down to one simple truth.
That all of this could be written on the surface of an emerald.
A reference to the legendary emerald tablet. It's this idea that the deepest truths are actually very simple, but our own intellectual pride makes us look for complex answers.
And we get this great counterpoint to all this high-minded philosophy from one of the practical men on the caravan.
The camel driver. I love this character. He's a man who lost everything in a flood, so his wisdom comes from real disaster.
And his philosophy is all about the present moment.
He says, I don't live in either my past or my future. I'm interested only in the present. He believes that if you live only for the moment, life becomes a grand festival.
But how does that fit with pursuing a personal legend, which is all about a future goal?
Because you can only realize that future goal through action in the present. The camel driver isn't saying do nothing, he's saying be fully here now. If you're completely present, you're observing the omens, you're learning, you're doing the work step by step.
He also has this incredible insight about prophecy.
Yeah, he talks about a seer he met, and the seer told him that they only guess the future based on signs in the present.
And God only shows us the future for one reason.
It's a future that was written so as to be altered. That's a huge idea. The future isn't a fixed destination. It's a draft that your choices in the present can actually edit.
The caravan finally makes it to the Al-Fayoum oasis. It's this huge, safe haven from all the tribal wars in the desert. And it's here that Santiago meets his biggest test yet.
Fatima.
Their meeting at the well is described with so much power.
It is. He looks into her eyes and feels the soul of the world surge within him. It's that universal language of love, and he recognizes it instantly.
And this immediately throws him into conflict. Love versus the personal legend. He's ready to just give up the treasure and stay there with her.
It's the second obstacle, love, coming back in a much more powerful form. But Fatima is this incredibly wise desert woman, and she's the one who pushes him forward.
She embodies that idea of non-possessive love.
Completely. She tells him, if I am really a part of your dream, you'll come back one day, Maktub. She knows that if he stays for her, he'll betray his purpose.
And he won't be the man she fell in love with anymore.
Exactly, the adventure would be gone. So she insists he has to leave for the pyramids.
And right after this, the story pivots hard from love to survival. Santiago sees this vision in the flight of hawks. An omen.
An omen that an army is going to attack the oasis. He takes a huge risk and warns the tribal chieftains.
But before they can even act on it, he's confronted by this terrifying figure.
The alchemist, dressed all in black on a massive horse. He demands to know who dared to read the hawks.
And he puts Santiago through this immediate, brutal test of courage.
He presses a huge sword right to Santiago's forehead, and in that moment when he thinks he's about to die, Santiago feels this weird sense of peace, even joy.
Because he'd be dying while pursuing his legend.
And for the love of Fatima, that acceptance is exactly what the alchemist was looking for. He pulls the sword away and says, courage is the quality most essential to understanding the language of the world.
So the chieftains listen, they defeat the army, and Santiago is a hero. He gets 50 gold pieces, they offer him a job as a counselor. The oasis is now the perfect trap.
It has everything. Safety, money, status, love. It is the ultimate comfort trap. And this is where the alchemist gives him this terrifyingly specific warning.
He maps out exactly what will happen if Santiago stays, year by year.
It's chilling. He says the first year will be happy. By the second, the dream will start nagging at him. The third year, the bitterness sets in. Fatima will feel guilty.
And the omens will stop.
The universe will stop talking to him because he stopped listening. By the fourth year, he'll be stuck, miserable, and know it's too late.
It's that apparently bearable suffering again. The slow death of the soul.
And the alchemist gives him the final rule of true love. Love never keeps a man from pursuing his personal legend. If he gives up his quest for her, it wasn't true love to begin with.
So the journey continues with the alchemist as his guide, and now he has to learn to listen to his heart.
But his heart has tasted comfort and love, and now it's afraid. It's become, as the book says, treasonous.
It starts whispering all the reasons to turn back.
It does. And the alchemist's advice here is maybe the most profound piece of wisdom in the entire book.
What does he say?
Tell your heart that the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself, and that no heart has ever suffered when it goes in search of its dreams.
Because every second of the search is an encounter with God.
And with eternity. When you're on the path, you're connected to something so big that the temporary pain doesn't matter as much.
This brings them to the last big hurdle, the final test.
Right. The alchemist explains that this happens to everyone right before they achieve their dream. The soul of the world tests everything you've learned.
It's not to be cruel.
No, it's a mastery exam. And it always happens when you're most tired, most hopeful. As he says, it's when you die of thirst, just when the palm trees have appeared on the horizon.
So Santiago and the alchemist are now in the middle of the war zone, almost to the pyramids. And they get captured by these armed tribesmen.
And this whole encounter is basically staged by the alchemist to teach one last simple lesson.
A really interesting one.
He just gives all of Santiago's money, the 50 gold pieces, to the chief. And when the chief asks about the other strange things they're carrying, the alchemist just tells the truth.
That's the Philosopher's Stone and the Elixir of Life.
And the Arabs just laugh at them. They think they're crazy.
So why do that? Why give away the money and tell the truth?
To show Santiago that when you possess great treasures within you and try to tell others of them, seldom are you believed.
The real treasure is internal.
And it can't be seen or valued by people who are only looking for material wealth.
But the chief is suspicious. He demands a miracle. He tells Santiago he has 3 days to turn himself into the wind or they'll both be killed.
This is it. the ultimate, impossible, final exam. Santiago has to take all this philosophy he's learned and make it real, physically real.
So he starts by talking to the elements. First, the desert.
Right. He asks the desert for help, and he defines love for it, saying it's what turns lead into gold. But the desert says it can't help and points him to the wind.
So then he speaks to the wind.
And the wind is proud and chaotic. It doesn't know how to turn a boy into wind either. But it's curious. So Santiago asks it to create a huge sandstorm, a simum.
Why?
So he can look up and speak to the sun without being blinded. The wind agrees, wanting to see what happens next.
Well, what happens when he talks to the sun?
The sun understands love because it gives life, but Santiago challenges it. He basically makes the case for evolution, for alchemy. He says, lead will play its role until the world has no further need for lead, and then lead will have to turn itself into gold.
He's arguing that the whole point of existence is transformation.
Constant improvement. He defines love as the force that transforms and improves the soul of the world. And this argument lets him reach the final source.
The hand that wrote all, God. And at that point, he stops talking.
A wave of pure love flows out of him. And in that silence, he understands. He understands that the soul of the world is part of the soul of God, and that because he understands this, he can perform miracles.
The barrier between human and divine just dissolves.
And the simum blows like never before, and Santiago literally disappears from one side of the camp and reappears on the other. He becomes the wind.
And the tribesmen, completely terrified, let them go. They make it to a monastery where the alchemist performs the final physical lesson.
The transmutation of lead to gold.
He actually does it.
He takes a piece of lead and, using a sliver from the Philosopher's Stone, turns it into a disc of gold. But he's very clear about why he's doing it. He tells Santiago, this was my personal legend, not yours, but I wanted to show you that it was possible.
The gold is just proof of the inner transformation that's already happened.
Exactly. And then he divides the gold into 4 pieces. One for the monk, one for himself, one for Santiago.
And a 4th piece, also for Santiago, which comes with a warning.
A proverb. Everything that happens once can never happen again. But everything that happens twice will surely happen a 3rd time.
Santiago has already lost his money twice.
To the thief and to the tribesman, this extra piece of gold is an insurance policy against the inevitable 3rd loss.
And before he leaves him, the alchemist tells one last story, the centurion dream story.
It's about a Roman father who had 2 sons. One was a famous poet whose words were eventually forgotten. The other was a humble centurion.
And the centurion's words, spoken to a rabbi, became immortal. My lord, I am not worthy that you should come under my roof, but only speak a word, and my servant will be healed.
Words that are still said in churches all over the world.
And the meaning of the story.
No matter what he does, every person on earth plays a central role in the history of the world, and normally he doesn't know it. It's the final lesson. Your journey matters, but so does everyone else's.
So Santiago is finally alone. His heart isn't treasonous anymore, it's his guide, and it leads him right to the pyramids.
It tells him, be aware of the place where you are brought to tears. That's where I am, and that's where your treasure is.
He gets there, he weeps. He's full of gratitude. And then he sees a scarab beetle, the symbol of God, and he starts to dig.
And that proverb from the alchemist comes true. This is the 3rd loss.
He gets attacked by refugees from the war. They beat him, they rob him, and in his desperation, he tells them about his dream.
The treasure hidden at the pyramids.
And the leader of the refugees just laughs at him. He stops beating him just to mock him with his own story. And this is the final perfect twist.
The leader says he also had a recurring dream about a treasure buried back in Spain.
At a ruined church with a sycamore tree growing where the sacristy used to be.
The exact place where Santiago's journey began.
And Santiago, beaten and bruised, his heart bursts with joy.
He laughs. The treasure was never in Egypt. The whole point of the journey to Egypt was just to learn where the treasure really was.
So he goes back, all the way back to that little church in Andalusia. He digs under the sycamore tree.
And there it is, a chest full of old Spanish gold coins and jewels. He realizes the alchemist guided him perfectly. The journey was for the transformation, and the extra gold the alchemist left for him was to pay for the trip home.
So in the end, he's back where he started, but he's a completely different person, an alchemist himself. And he feels the wind, the levanter blowing from Africa.
And it doesn't smell foreign anymore. It carries the scent of Fatima's perfume and the touch of a kiss.
The universe has delivered everything, the treasure and the love.
And his final line completes the circle.
I'm coming, Fatima. #outro.
So to just sort of recap the core of this deep dive, we've seen how the personal legend is found by, reading omens, choosing action, and getting through the fear of failure, and maybe even the fear of success.
And making sure love is what pushes you forward, not what holds you back. The real dangers are always comfort and stagnation.
Right.
But let's close with that central paradox. The alchemist knew. He knew the treasure was back in Spain the whole time.
He absolutely did.
So why? Why make Santiago go through all of that? Years of travel, risking his life, losing everything, just to end up back where he started.
Because the journey wasn't about finding the gold. It was about becoming the person who was worthy of the gold. All the knowledge he gained, the courage, the language of the world, true love, turning into the wind, that was the real treasure.
If he had just dug under the tree at the beginning.
He would have bought more sheep, gotten comfortable, and probably ended up just like the crystal merchant. A man whose blessing became a curse because he never grew into it.
The journey was the alchemy. It transformed him. The gold was just the confirmation at the end.
And the cost of standing still, as we saw with the merchant, is just the slow, agonizing death of your soul. Creeping bitterness.
So the final thought for you, the listener, building on all this, is to think about the journey itself. The alchemist sent Santiago on a quest where the physical destination was, in a way, a red herring. The real goal was the knowledge he would gain along the path.
So the question for you is this. What knowledge are you currently lacking that can only be found by pursuing a difficult path, even if you suspect the treasure you're looking for might just be the person you become along the way?
A profound thought to end on. We hope this deep dive into The Alchemist has given you a renewed sense of the critical importance of your own personal legend.